Did you
father's parents were J. Hatten Carpenter,
About him.
and
He was born in England.
he was born in England, Devonshire, and when his father was a minister, and when he was around 20, about 20, he went down into Germany and Europe, and then he came home, and then he decided to make a tour. And the British Commonwealth at that time, British Empire, included Australia. And he went to Australia, which was a long trip around the world as a young man. He didn't like Australia because it was a place where they had a lot of rough people, pirates and rough people, and he decided to come back to England, but he was going to come to the United States first. So on the boat, riding from Australia to San Francisco, took 2 months on the boat. And he met 2 returned LDS missionaries that were on that boat, and they taught him the gospel. Had a captive audience. One of them's name was Pratt, which is probably related to Pat's. His name was Pratt family. And he joined the church and came to Utah. He was working in Salt Lake City, and then he went down to Manti, I think to the dedication of the Manti Temple, or just to attend the Manti Temple. And he met my grandmother there. Her name was Matilda Schramm. Her parents had come from Switzerland. And he met her. She was working in the temple in the cafeteria. And she was a very spiritual woman, and Grandpa fell in love with her, and here's how he started to date her. He got back to Salt Lake City, and he wrote a letter to her father and said, I met your daughter, Matilda, and with your permission, I would like to correspond with her. Would that be okay with you? And they started writing, and then he decided to come to Manti to meet her again. And they started dating, and then they got married. And he moved to Manti. And after he was in Manti for about a year and a half, they had a boy, and he was called on a mission to Samoa. So he left his wife and daughter and went to Samoa. He left his wife and son, Uncle Gerald, at home in Manti, and he went to Samoa for 3 years on mission. Came home, and then he had several more children, including a daughter and 4 sons, and 2 other daughters that died stillborn. And both of those that died stillborn were born just before they finally had my dad, who was the last one. So he was kind of lucky to be born alive.
Died stillborn?
Meaning that when they were born, they
when
were...
they were born, they were dying.
Like right after they were born?
Yeah, that's called stillborn before.
And so she had diabetes, and I personally am grateful that with her diabetes and having 2 stillborns that my dad came out alive. He was born alive. He was the last. That was her. She was a good lady. And then he was very British. He'd been educated in England. He worked in the Manti City Bank for many years. He was in the bishopric of the Manti Central Ward. And then he was called to be the Manti Temple recorder. And with his penmanship, he was the recorder of the Manti Temple until he was age 92 when he retired. He never owned an automobile. He walked to the temple every day. And
So he walked up that big hill?
Never drove a car.
Cool.
Never flew in an airplane. When we moved to California, we asked him to come see us, and he wouldn't do it. So whenever we saw him, we went to Manti. He was very old when I knew him, of course, and when we moved to California, my brother and I all went to Manti to work with my uncle on his farm, and I was 12 years old, and he gave me my patriarchal blessing when he was 95 years old.
So when you were 12, he was 95 already?
That's pretty old.
Yeah.
So what years were they born?
He was born the same year as the Battle of Manassas that we saw today.
Wow.
1862.
Wow.
Wow.
And he died in 1965.
Wait, so he
While I was on my
lived
mission.
through the Civil War?
What?
He was a baby.
He was a baby during the Civil War, but he was living in England.
He was in England.
Oh, okay.
So what do you remember about when you went to visit him?
One of my favorite things to do was to look at his, I don't know what it's called, but it was these cards that would sit on this eyeglass thing, and you could look through it and you see three dimension for a card, and you see three dimension.
Stereograph?
Stereoscope. Okay, yeah, he had a lot of cards for stereoscope. And we would play his records that you'd put on and wind it up. I'd play those cylinder records. And we went to visit him on his 100th birthday from California. And we were there a day early, and I was playing his record player, and he came in and he said, "Donnie, you love that player, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm going to give it to you." And my dad was there, my uncle was there when he said it. And so my dad had my uncle, who was a carpenter, believe it or not, box it up, put it in a crate, and they had it shipped to California.
Wait, don't
So I
you
got
still
that.
have that?
Yeah.
Still have it.
That's so
I think if we
You
hadn't
know
done
that-
that,
Wait,
I would have never
those
seen
are-
it because my
that's-
cousins and everybody would have taken it over.
Yeah.
My dad
Do
shipped
You
it.
know that Victrola that they have downstairs that has the cylinders?
Yeah.
Yeah, aren't they the
That was
tubes?
his.
that
But
you
it
put
never,
on?
like...
We should play it when
No,
they
you
come
don't
home
need
at
it.
Christmas time.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's some cool songs on it.
that's it for them.
So,
I
I was trying to tell them the other day about how he ate eggs really.
He had an egg every morning.
And
of
how
life.
did he cook it?
You put it in, you boil it, and you put it in a little cup, little egg cup, sticks up, you top it, and you spoon the egg out.
Yeah. So
of,
is
of
it?
the shell. You eat the egg out
How long
of
do
the
you
shell.
cook it? I was trying to tell them
A
that.
boiled egg.
3 minutes.
3
It was
minutes.
usually a soft boiled egg.
3 minutes.
You put it in that little cup. And
So is it like
you
soupy
take it out.
or?
No.
It's a little bit.
Hard?
It's no. It's
Like a
it's
hard
not
boiled
hard
egg?
The
boiled.
inside,
Soft
the
boiled.
yellow part is kind of runny like a fried egg.
And you have a little spoon.
Yeah, it's about like a fried
You
egg.
eat it out of the egg shell.
And he did
And
that all the time.
he did that regularly. He didn't eat a whole lot of meat,
Hmm.
but he ate eggs every day.
That's funny because he had cattle. Or your
They
his
had
sons had
cattle.
cattle.
Cattle, and
But they
had
didn't eat a lot of meat.
chickens. And when we would go visit him in his house, they didn't have hot running water.
Mm.
They cooked the water on a hot stove with coal and wood, and they'd take the hot water off the stove and pour it in the bathtub. And then you
Yeah.
put cold water in with it, and you get it just right, and then you'd have your bath.
So you had bath that way when you went to visit?
I didn't do it very much, but I remember doing that when I was a young boy.
Mm.
And the biggest thing in their lives, I guess, is later on they got a shower, hot running water.
No way.
But it was after I was in my teen years, I'm sure.
Wow.
Very late in his life
Yeah. And he learned to take showers, huh?
when to take showers.
Yeah.
Did he never do a
And
shower?
there were
was
two
like-
stoves in the house. There was a big stove in the living room that they put firewood in to keep the whole house warm. And then there was a stove in the kitchen.
So he died when he was like 100.
103.
Oh.
How old
Whoa.
were you?
I was 20.
You were.
I'm
Oh,
in
you were.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that.
And when I learned that he died from my father in a letter, I was in Frankfurt with President Benson and Gordon B. Hinckley came to visit us in the mission home to visit President Benson on his way back to the
Before
United
he was
States
a
from
prophet.
Southeast Asia.
When he was an apostle.
And President Benson said, "This is Elder Carpenter. His father, J. Hatten Carpenter,
His grandfather.
his grandfather just died in Manta. He was a recorder there. He was 103. And I remember Gordon B. Hinckley saying, "Yeah, I remember J. Hatten Carpenter. He wasn't a man. He was an institution." Especially Gordon B. Hinckley was almost that old when he died. He was 97, I think.
Yeah.